Okay, I am Brenda Morrow, what they call a community mom. I'm the president of the Edge Hill Apartments Resident Association, and also the executive director of ONE, Organized Neighbors of Edge Hill. Okay, how I define it and I, that's the same question as what's good about it. What's good about the community is the residents, the willing of the residents to come together, uh, identify issues that they want to deal with, uh, to uh, meet with everybody, partner agencies to develop strategies and set goals to accomplish that. And that's pretty much the way that we've been working since 1991 when we revamped ONE. We had a series of house meetings, over 70, where residents agreed to have a meeting and have 8 to 10 residents come to their house and talk about what's good in the community, what's wrong, and if you had a magic wand, how would you fix it? Yeah. So after those 70 meetings, we had a big community meeting at Carter Lawrence School, and that was before they built the new school years ago. And people decided on the 3 main issues that they wanted to address, and those 3 main issues still drive the organization and the community today, and that was crime, education, and housing. And so through that, ONE, to deal with the housing, at that meeting we developed committees to work on each one of those issues, what we call go and do fact-finding missions. And so the housing committee pretty much met with MDHA. They became a charter organization that meant that they could build houses or buy houses. And so they started building homes. Well, we just did one from the ground up. And the others we would buy and remodel and provide to residents through a low interest loan, working with banks that we identified. And that has gone very, very well. With the scholarship committee, we decided that in order to ask other people to come and support our children, we needed to develop a strategy to address education, and through that we did the scholarships. We started scholarships. We started getting parents to meeting with schools that identified the children as having behavior problems and stuff like that. So we met with the principals and the teachers, and we had the residents to meet with them, and we came up with the idea of residents riding the school buses, residents volunteering at those schools, and residents being pretty much working with the teachers and working in the cafeteria, but as a volunteer basis. So the kids would see them, and we didn't want the kids, because the kids were young. They were going like to kindergarten and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And their first time on a school bus, they take them way out of the community and pull them up to a big building that looks like a prison. Yeah. That's what I said. If I was 5 years old, I think this was a jailhouse or something. And so we decided to, on the first day of school, to make sure that the parents dressed in those yellow ONE t-shirts and went out there, and as the bus came up, they would hold their arms up and say, "Welcome to your new school," and stuff like that, and they would give them a pencil, 2 pencils, and we would tell them one is for yourself and the other one is for your teachers. And one of the boys says, "The teachers got pencils." I said, but this pencil is to let the teacher know who they have to deal with when there's issues in the school with you. So make sure your teacher has a contact for ONE. With the crime committee, we paid a visit to the police chief. And at that time, it was Chief Kirshner.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how you go into a meeting with somebody and they already got a preconceived notion about how they're going to respond to you and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
That tickled me because we went in and he says, I see that you all are concerned with this and you're concerned with that, and this is what we're going to do. And I thank you all for coming. It was nice to have someone come to my office. And so after that, Reverend Barnes, he looked at me and he said, Brenda, can you take over? So I took over and I said, thank you for welcoming us and thank you for giving us your idea about what's going on. But we have before you an agenda, and we want to address each one of these items on this agenda. And it was like, he said, nobody had ever come to him like that, because we were like a community that wanted to know from him what we can do as a community to help our police officers. Mm-hmm. And he said nobody has ever come to him like that. And so he agreed to publicly sign a community police agreement contract. And that simply said a few things like holding the police accountable, holding the community accountable, meeting monthly with residents to discuss issues and concerns that they had. And they also, every time we got a new police chief, we'd have a community signing of a contract between the community and the police department. And not only the police department, we had people like Senator Harper, God rest her soul, who's passed on, but Senator Harper, she was a member of ONE, and she always said, Brenda, when are you going to take my membership to? And she was so sweet. But she would come, and council people would come, different department heads would come, because they all wanted to be a part of that signing of a agreement. So that's what happened back in 91, and it's still going on now. The new chief, Chief Drake, he came out in May. After he took office, he came out in May to do a public signing of a partnership agreement, and Brenda Haywood from the mayor's office and council people and John Ray Clemens, all those people who come out and support the Edge Hill community. So we're still doing what we do, and that's what I like about this community. That's some of the highlights that we work together.
Yeah.
We identify partners, and we bring everybody together, and we work to make sure that resources are here and the residents' issues and concerns are met. Oh, it's been good for the community simply because it gives the residents an opportunity to learn about growing food, to grow their own food, to learn about it. And we partnered with the TSU Agriculture Extension. Our extension agent is Mary Wakefield, and she meets with us during the planting and the growing season once a month, the third Wednesday of every month, in the garden. And she teaches different techniques about growing your food. She teaches about nutrition. She teaches about, we do soil samples so that people know what needs to go in the dirt to have a good production of vegetables. This last growing season, she brought to the meeting an agent, Mr. Finus Striblin. I call him our tree expert. He comes in and he wants to cut limbs off the trees, and it just hurts my feelings. And he says, you need to look away because we finna trim this tree. And it's, to me, when I first saw it being done, I'm like, you're killing the tree. Yeah. But they do that in order for the tree to produce more fruit the next year. So he comes every year. In fact, he'll be here in March to talk about gardening. March is when we have our orientation and kickoff And that's when we get flyers out. And residents that are interested in having a garden spot, they come, they learn about, we call it an orientation meeting. They learn about the history of the garden. And they learn about the policies and the rules. And they have to sign a commitment contract not to break those rules. And the most important thing in those rules is never pick from somebody else's spot. I always emphasize that because I'll never get over the lady that called me in the night, and then the next day she came to the garden ranting and raving. She had a big tomato about this big, and it just disappeared. And she said, nobody's supposed to pick that. Miss Brenda, somebody took my tomato. I don't appreciate that in somebody stealing out of my garden. And I says, I told her, I called her by name. I said, before you accuse people, please understand that in this garden, when you plant, you have to plant for yourself, enough for yourself, and enough for the critters. I said, we don't know that a squirrel or a rabbit didn't get your tomato and drag it off and ate it up. And she looked at me and she said, well, yeah, but it's a joy to bring people into the garden and to teach them about gardening. At the end of the year, gardening season, Miss Mary always does a survey to determine how much produce has been grown, how much has been used, how much has been given away, and also we get to go to markets like Kroger's and different places like that in Walmart and price different vegetables, and that way we can determine how much money we've saved during the year. So that's a great benefit for the residents. She also teaches how to can your fruit and vegetables, because we also have a fruit orchard, and that was donated to us some years back by the turnip truck. They did a grant, and we grew 50 fruit trees. We got 50 fruit trees and berry bushes, and they did some raised beds. And when we had to move the garden from up there right behind Merle School, which is now the police precinct, we had to move it down to where it is. It was nice because we were upset at first. But then when I met with Metro and Metro Schools and General Services, and they agreed, made a commitment to move the garden. So in moving the garden, they had to move our greenhouse and our tool shed and all of those fruit trees. They had to bring all those down, and they dug them up, put them down. We couldn't accommodate all of them in that space, so we gave some to Merle School and Rose Park School and the community center, and we only kept 27. And the rest of them we donated somewhere else because we didn't want them to die. So that garden has been a beautiful asset to the community and to residents because, like I said, they're able to grow their own vegetables and learn about canning and freezing. I'm not a big fan of canning because it takes so long. Because I remember my grandmama doing it years ago. But I like to know how to, blanch vegetables and freeze them. And that way, in the winter months, if you need some bell peppers, you got them. Yeah, yeah, you got them. So that's what it is with the garden. It's a rapidly growing city. I think a positive and a negative together would be the growth. Simply because we've got so many people coming in for jobs and for housing. Finding houses has been like, a challenge for people. But the fact that there's a lot of housing development doesn't mean that it's development that would benefit people that are in lower income people. The housing that they're building is for people that's coming in for these jobs that's making way above the poverty level. And so that's why I pretty much figure, it's a good thing to have people coming in, and it's with people coming in, you bring the negative of them finding housing, of people that are already in these communities like Edge Hill, that's so close to downtown. It's challenging because they're seeing housing, duplexes, and those new development going up around their house. And in turn, people are saying that their taxes have gone up. They're saying that sometimes the buildings that they're putting up is pretty much covering their house, so they can't grow flowers. One lady that's a gardener of ours, I have a senior moment. I hate to have a senior moment. Miss Mildred Alford. She is 96, and she is a gardener, and she likes to grow stuff in her yard also. She has plants on her porch and stuff. So she was like, Miss Morrow, when you've got a tall house behind you on both sides of you, she said there's no room for God's sunlight to come in and nourish your plants. And she said, I hate that. She said, but I'm not moving. I'm not moving. I said, well, Miss Mildred, just always know that you've got a spot in the garden. You can come and grow what you want to grow. And days that you don't feel like it, we partner with youth, and the youth partner with the seniors to form what we call intergenerational gardening, where they learn from one another. It's awesome to see a senior like Miss Mildred teaching kids about how to best grow stuff, and then to see the children sitting under the pavilion teaching her about her iPhone and how to do different stuff with her phone. So I love that part about the garden. We bring seniors and youth together, so that's a good thing. The other thing I'm seeing is the traffic.
Yeah.
Traffic. It used to be between 4:30 and 5 and 6 was the bulk of the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I was out yesterday and at 2:30.
All the time.
I mean, the traffic was so heavy. And then I had to go out to a meeting at 7 last night. The traffic was still heavy. And I'm like, oh my gosh. All these people moving in and all this traffic, because I don't know, commuting, I think that's a thing of the past. I don't know. But it used to be, people used to share rides.
Mm-hmm.
That was years ago, but now everybody got to have their own car.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking that with the new infrastructure plan and stuff for Nashville, I'm hoping they get like, what is it, a rail or train or something where people can just come out, get on a bus, go to that station, get on that train and get dropped off.
Yeah.
In the area where they work, because it's ridiculous. I'd be scared for my grandchildren to be out driving. They're young,
Yeah.
and with all this traffic brings about. I don't know if the traffic brings it about or the people's conditions about what they have to deal with brings about that road rage.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. It used to be you could wave to people, or if they honk at you or something, you could wave to them. But now I'm like, keep your eyes on the road, because you never know what people are going through and how they will interpret
Yeah.
just you waving or something like that. So it's so scary. So with all this changes that's going on, there's so many things that you can touch on that's a positive and a negative.
Yeah, for sure.
And a negative. We don't have a grocery store.
Right.
That's another thing that bugs us. With all this development, I am so looking forward to having a grocery store in this community where we can walk to it. We did a thing with the Marquette group. You might want to look that up. But they came and they wanted to do development down there where Beaman Pontiac is. That's where the community kind of ends, housing and stuff ends as you go across to Beaman Pontiac. But they were purchasing that and wanted to do, at first it was like, I think, a hotel and studio apartments or condos. But then, this is where it comes in with the residents meeting and helping people develop strategies. We met with the developer. His name's Chris Yuko, and we met with him and some of his staff, and we talked about what the needs were for the community. The very first thing we did was invite him to the garden and to the William Edmondson home site, because he wanted, their initial plans was to put a William Edmondson Park in that development. And so we were kind of wanting to make sure that they knew about the William Edmondson home site that's here in the Edge Hill community, and the William Edmondson Park, and the gardens and stuff. So we invited him. He came, he walked the garden, he looked at the grapes, he took pictures of blossoms on the cactus plants, and then we walked through the park. He looked at the trees that we had gotten planted, because we had planted 60 new trees to become level 1 arboretum. And so he walked through and he looked at all that. Then he looked at the 2 big oak trees that we had found out or determined that were planted by William Edmondson, because we had people to look at it and they said they know the trees were over 100 years old. So, and we figured out where his home site was, where his house was, and we figured those 2 trees was an entrance into his yard. And his yard was an opening to a area where he did sculptures. He's like the first black self-taught African American that had a one-man showing at the Museum of Modern Art. Yes, and now there's an exhibit at Cheekwood, and we're able, one year we were able to partner with Cheekwood, and they furnished buses to come and get people from the community and bring them to that big showing of William Edmondson's art, and tour the Cheekwood. So, I mean, it's been so much that has gone on, but after Chris was able to walk that and find out about it, he says, he was going to go back, talk with his staff, and it ended up they completely scrapped the original plans. And he came, he walked through the community, talked to residents, and his most important question was, if we go through the Metro Council and get to build down there, what is the most important things that you would like to see? Residents said a grocery store and jobs for the community. And that young man, he got right on it. I mean, he made sure that it was included in the bottom level of these apartments. It was like a multi-use. It would be a grocery store. Okay. There would be a place where people to come and learn entrepreneurship. We also partnered with Nashville State. Whatever resident wants to apply for a job and need expertise or training, they're going to pay for them to go to school. Wow. And learn that. And so that's a big part of, like I said, there's good development, there's bad development, and it's up to the residents actually to come together, I think, even if they're not contacted by the developers, to contact them and find out, what's this going to look like, what's going to be in it for the community, and, stuff like that. That was a big example of residents coming together to work to save something. I found out in a very short period of time, in like less than a week or 2 weeks, about this going to the Metro Council to sell the Morrow School. The Morrow School sits on the William Edmondson home site, and they wanted to sell it to make up for a budget deficit. So we immediately, with the help of Mark Slicker and Gloria McKissick, we immediately did a Facebook page, Save the William Edmondson Home Site. Nice. And we had a big community meeting at Progressive Baptist Church down there. We had a big meeting and invited the news media and everybody to come and talk about this. And we had people like Joel Dark and others, community people, to sit and just on a panel and answer questions about the history and stuff and about what we were doing. So I'd say in less than a week we got over 2,000 signatures to stop that sale. We also took residents on buses. We loaded them up. We went to Metro Council meetings. We went to Budget and Finance Committee meetings. We did everything that we could. And when it was up for the final reading, we were sitting in the audience, and our item was close to last. So we were there until after 11:30 to have them vote to take that sale off the budget. So that's how we saved it. After we saved it, the thing was to figure out how to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And with that, we got in contact with the schools, Metro schools, to get permission to plant trees. And we knew that we needed, 37 species in order to become an arboretum. So we planted 60 trees. And since then, we added a few more. We're looking to move it up to a level 2 arboretum. But with that, in October last year, October 29th, we had our very first William Edmondson Arts and Culture Festival with attendance of over 500 people. We had people there from the Nashville Symphony, the Arts Commission, our headliner band was the Carlos D. Ford Bailey Band. And what we did on that day was do plaques, little circular plaques. And if you go to that home site page, you'll see a picture of those plaques where we hung them on the trees. Each tree is dedicated to an Edge Hill resident, that someone who gave to this community to help develop it, help make it what it is today, contributed something. People like the Moses McKissick family stayed right down Edge Hill, off of Edge Hill, and they are the first architectural firm that developed that did a lot of stuff all over Nashville, even at the Fisk University and stuff. So, and now they've got businesses throughout the world. I mean, California, Washington, everywhere. So we had to dedicate a tree to Moses McKissick, and to Bill Barnes. There's a tree dedicated to him for the founding of the Edge Hill United Methodist Church. Zima Hill the person that brought those bears, those polar bears to the community. He was also a funeral director and a pastor. So oh my goodness, on the 29th we did a plaque for Reverend Dick Allison. He was the person who came to the resident association and said, "What you think about having a garden in the city?" So, we did a plaque for him in the garden. There's an orchard that says Allison's Orchard. There's signage over there for that. And if you haven't been to the garden, if you go down and on the side that faces the public housing, there's a big plaque that the residents did to commemorate the garden. It's a memorial garden, and it's dedicated to Terrence Murray. He's a young kid that when we first started the garden, he was growing, he loved growing food. And he went to school one day, and another kid had brought a gun to the school, and it dropped out of the kid's backpack and it killed Terrence. So the kids, they were so broken up about that. We had to form a circle. I called Reverend Barnes. I says, "I need your help. Kids are getting off buses and running to this garden." And I said, "I need your help." He came and it was the biggest circle I've ever seen, a prayer circle that they did for Terrence. And so they decided they wanted to name the garden after him. So the Edge Hill Community Garden then became the Terrence Murray Edge Hill Community Memorial Garden. Mm-hmm. And so there's a plaque down there as you go down Horton that commemorates that. And then some of the other stuff we've done at the home site, there's so much, and we're keeping it moving. We had a bench where the mayor came and helped us dedicate a bench to David Lose, L-O-S-E, important icon in Nashville. His wife, Betty, wanted to do something for the William Emerson home site, and so we commissioned and had a bench designed, and it's beautiful, and it's right up there. If you go into the park off of 14th? Off of 14th, the bench is sitting right there. It's beautiful. And on the top, it has a quote from William Edmondson. So the mayor came and helped us do the unveiling of that bench. Since we've gotten started, we've raised over $80,000 for to do a new play park, because the one that was there had been there for so long, ever since we had done a community development block grant with MDHA, and we put that park there, and that was way back, and it was all dilapidated and tore up. So the residents, when we had a meeting to decide what to do about the park, the residents said, we need a new play park for the kids, because the closest one is up there across 12th at the Easley Community Center, and we can't let our kids go up there. So hence we raised money for that new play park down there. So if you go down there and walk, you'll see that too. Other than that, we've got signs that dedicate the park as an arboretum. We've got signs that say how many laps you have to do around that rocking track to equal a mile. And what we're getting ready to do now is a follow-up meeting with community partners and community organizations. We had the first meet and greet on January the 7th, where we just invited people to come and talk about their agencies and what resources they had and what support they could give the community. And so our follow-up meeting, because at that meeting I passed out little sheets of paper that little forms that says who you are, your agencies, your resources, and what will you commit to do in 2023 and 24 for this partnership. And so on the 25th of March, we will have a follow-up meeting, and that's at 11:30 if y'all want to come. Okay. and it will be at the Midtown Hills Police Precinct, right up there between us and up at Belmont. Yeah, a lot of people got issues with Belmont.
Yeah.
They didn't want them to put that walking track up there, the batting facilities.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's not to say that O&E was against it. In the beginning, before they put the sportsplex up there behind the center, O&E was against it. Mm-hmm. We were fighting against that, and then in meeting with the residents one day down at the public housing at the community room, residents said, you know, Miss Brenda, you know, even though the community is fighting this, what are some of the things that we need from this? So I looked at her and I rephrased it. I said, so what's in it for us? And she says, well, yes, ma'am, because the bottom line, I feel like they're going to get to build that walking track. And I says, yeah, because it's a public-private partnership, and it's between Metro Parks and Belmont. The community, we're just here. So it would be good if we invited people from Belmont and people from Metro Parks to come and talk with the residents. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. We had Dr. Susan West, Dr. Rogers. At one point, Dr. Fisher did come and meet with the residents. So, oh my goodness. After sitting and talking and residents telling them what they needed, O&E wasn't against it anymore.
Okay.
You know, because pretty much O&E was formulated with residents, not only from the private homes, but public housing. Mm-hmm. A great deal of those house meetings that were held back in 1991 was with public housing residents. So once they said, you know, what we need to see is funding. So Belmont, they agreed to give an X amount of money to the community every year. Mm-hmm. And it goes through Metro Parks to Carter Launch School, Rose Park School, and also to the community center right there. Mm-hmm. And with the community center, the money that goes to them is specifically for youth activities and senior activities. So that's where it started with the Valentine's Day dance, where, they would sponsor buses and pick up residents and take them to a Valentine's ball. And so part of that funding has gone to do things that residents wanted, like taking the children on a trip to Memphis or to Atlanta, or doing special activities where they have awareness forums and conferences there for the children and for the community. I don't know. I just figure it's a win-win situation. Mm-hmm. And I really thank God that resident said, what's in it for us? Because that was a way for us to get to the table and talk with people and let them know that if this comes to pass, this is what the community needs. Mm-hmm. We needed computers for the community center. We needed people to come in and teach entrepreneurship, you know, how to start businesses and stuff. And we knew they had classes up at Belmont. Yeah. So I'm like, even if just some students come in and talk to residents about what's going on and how to start a business, that would be great. And so after we did that, O&E was not against it. But there was a few people in O&E that pretty much would use O&E's name. You know? That's just like with the batting facility. The board of directors specifically said that we were not against the batting facilities. We did not authorize anybody to say that we were against it, but every time there came to be a meeting in Metro Council or the planning commission department and stuff, people would stand up and they would read something and say O&E against Belmont. So we took a busload of people there one night to the meeting, and I said I would like to correct a statement that's wrong on this item. O&E is not behind this complaint. You have it registered as a complaint from O&E. O&E did not authorize any of its members to lodge this complaint, so we're not complaining against it. In fact, we have people from the community that are here to speak. The most moving part was one of our children, who's also a gardener, came up and said, I'm in support of the batting facilities. I want to learn about basketball, baseball, all the different sports, and I want to play baseball. That kid was 8 years old. And so that was the highlight of that meeting. I mean, people have played that and played that.
I noticed on Nashville sites, when you go and view the Edgeville neighborhood and the information about it, it says O&E has fought to secure affordable housing, food access, quality neighborhood schools, and reduce crime. And you've, of course, touched on all these things. We're particularly interested in, I guess, affordable housing and food access. How do you approach strengthening the community in those aspects and keeping everybody close and working towards the same goal of having a good community?
Oh my goodness. The biggest asset for that is the store. Mm-hmm. When Brad Paisley came and they sent people from up at Belmont and talked about how the store should be designed, how the business should be run and stuff. Oh my goodness, that was so... I was so happy when we did the groundbreaking. Mm-hmm. I've got pictures of myself and Brad Paisley, his wife, and Dr. Fisher up there doing that groundbreaking. I know y'all can find it. But that has been a big asset because in the past, what we've done, we partnered with a program that was the Partners of Food Insecurity. They closed out. But during that time, we visited stores. We got on buses to find out, to map how long it took to get on a bus and get to the closest store. And then we made suggestions about things to put on with MTA. We met with them about grocery racks and stuff like that to go on some of their buses. So we've been dealing with food insecurity for a very long time. Right. We even met with people to try and get somebody to do a store, Kroger's and different places right there on the corner where Operation Stand Down is now. But that didn't come because they said after they did, what do they call it, a needs assessment or something, that it wasn't a good location. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a good location because it sit downhill from the main street. It was silly. But anyway, that didn't come into play. So we did other things like the food truck. We were the first community to work with Vanderbilt to do a food truck where we actually got funding to get a truck and get a refrigeration system on it and all that different stuff, and it would come through the community. And then it started branching out to other public housing sites and stuff like that. They still have a similar program like that, but I know it goes to Meharry and different places like that. But we don't have it here anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's why I said when the idea about the store being built up there on that property and stuff came. I mean, that was great. And Miss Jasmine, I remember meeting with her when we was all just talking about it, but now she's there at the store, and we do partner agency referrals, so I can refer people up there to actually go up there. I think every week they can go up there and go through that store like they're going to a regular store and get groceries, and they bring it up, and that's to keep an idea about how much food is coming through that store into the community, and I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But in the future, I'm looking forward to the Marquette Group building down there on their property and providing a store where people can actually walk down on Division and get groceries, you know, and actually work down there. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.